Good evening. Welcome to the Falls Township Board of Supervisors meeting for October 3rd, 2016. We'll begin with the salute to the flag, please.
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, thank you. Mrs. Pullen?
Mr. Galloway, Mr. Boraski.
Here.
Mr. Harvey.
Here.
Mr. Dents.
Here.
Mr. Rocco.
Here.
Mr. Galloway sends his regrets. He had a family emergency that came up just right before our meeting, so he's not able to be here, and we hope everything's going to be okay. We're sort of like our last meeting. We're beginning our, oh, wait, sorry. Let me start. Mr. Clark, we had an executive session before the meeting.
Yes, Mr. Chairman. During the executive session, the board discussed a matter of potential litigation and also a personnel matter.
Thank you. As we did with our last meeting, we're beginning this meeting with a proclamation to honor an organization here in the township, or that serves several functions, or several townships or municipalities, but serves our township and this, particularly the students and families of our township, and one we're very proud of. Last meeting it was the Quaker Meeting House, and this meeting it is the Pennsbury Scholarship Foundation, and I see a few members here, but just to let people know, it's been 60 years since the Pennsbury Scholarship Foundation was created. It makes it the oldest privately funded scholarship foundation serving a public school in the United States. It has given out over almost $2.5 million in that time to people, obviously not just in Falls, but also in Tullytown or Makefield and Yardley. And it's obviously a wonderful organization. I've known several people who've been in it over the years, and I know there are a few members here. I don't know if they wanted to say a few words before we do the proclamation, or you're welcome to. Sure, at the microphone, sure, absolutely.
Thank you very much. I'm Jeff Smith. I'm the president of the foundation. You stole most of my thunder.
I apologize.
That's
I'm
okay.
sorry.
That's a good thing that people know. That's great. I will add that this year, as you stated, we're celebrating our 60th anniversary. This past go-round in June, we handed out $140,000 to 83 students that are either just graduating from college or just graduating from high school and matriculating in college. So I just wanted to thank you guys for recognizing our 60 years, and obviously Falls Township and all the surrounding areas are extremely important to us, and thank you for all you folks do. Carol, did you have anything you wanted to add? Okay. Miss Sherry? Carol, as you know, Carol Reagan is our go get 'em lady. And Sherry's here with us. Sherry Cleveland's here tonight. She is the chairperson of the 60th Foundation celebration. Sherry, did you want to say anything? Okay. So I feel blessed, and thank you very much for everything. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. And I'll let you know that there's a signature missing on here. Obviously, Mr. Galloway's not here, so we might just hold on to this till we get a signature, and then we'll give it to you. We'll pass it this evening, obviously, though. But there's quite a few whereases, but I'll kind of skip to the main ones here. Mentioning a lot of the things I've already talked about, the 60-year history, the $2.4 million given. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the Board of Supervisors of the Township of Falls, on behalf of the citizens of Falls Township, does hereby issue this proclamation to the members, both past and present, of the Pennsbury Scholarship Foundation, expressing its sincere gratitude for its 60 years of dedication and service to the community, and wishing the foundation many more decades of successful service and dedication. Proclaimed this 3rd day of October 2016. Is there a motion to approve the proclamation?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Okay. All right.
While he's coming over, I just want to say one more thing, that we are having a celebration this November. I forgot to say that. This November at the Sheridan, November 12th, Saturday, November 12th, we are actually celebrating our 60th anniversary with a banquet. So it's open to the public. It's $60 per person, and we have an amazing speaker coming who our new superintendent is very excited about. He's a Pennsbury grad, a scholarship winner, and he's running a charter school. Not a charter, it's some sort of special. It's a special school in Philadelphia, which is amazing. It's technology school, so it's a wonderful thing. we're very excited about that.
Okay, that's a good way to start off a good meeting. Item number 1 is our public comment. Mr. Gray has handed me the sheets, the sign-in sheets, which are in the back. There are no signatures. I don't know if anybody just has changed their mind or wishes to speak. Okay, all right. Okay, we'll move to a certificate of appropriateness for 127 Yardley Avenue, which is for repairing a roof on a detached garage in the rear yard. Mr. Gray?
Yes, this has been reviewed and approved by the HARB Board. The owner of the property is Grace Sharp. The board is asked to consider this certificate of appropriateness at this time.
Okay, thank you. Comments or questions? Owner of the property, Ms. Sharp, I don't know if she's here or not. Okay, all right. I don't know, if you just want to come up and just give us an idea of, real quick, just what you're doing?
Hi, I'm Allison Marietta. I'm Grace's granddaughter.
Okay,
She just had a stroke 2 weeks ago,
Oh.
so she's no longer dealing with this. I am
okay.
taking care of it
Hopefully
for
she's
her.
okay.
Oh, she's okay.
Okay.
I just know added stress right now for her.
Oh, well, this is not really stressful, but, so it looks, do you know how old the shed is? I mean, it seems pretty.
Probably about 100 years old. It's
okay.
not as old as the house,
Right.
but it is a freestanding structure, and a tree fell on it.
Oh.
So,
Okay. All right, yeah. It looks, and you've provided copies of the different, of what the tile's gonna look like, the roofing or shingles are gonna look like, and pictures of that property itself. Any comments or questions?
I have none.
Okay. All right, and the HARB Board has approved this. So is there a motion to approve the certificate of appropriateness for 127 Yardley Avenue?
Yes, I'll second it.
All in favor? Aye.
all right, thank you.
Yep, thank you. Okay, item 3 is a conditional use hearing for St. Joseph Court, 9172 New Falls Road. This is 2 different tax map parcels, 13024 001 and 13020 Do we have a motion to open the conditional use hearing?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Okay. Just for purposes of explanation, a conditional use hearing is not the same as land development. So the project that you're going to see will have to come back before us for actual approval of the development plan itself. In terms of, a lot of the details, this conditional use hearing is really just kind of beginning the process of, on this particular zoned property, is this use one that the township is comfortable with? There are, in this use, this is an institutional zoning, which is suitable for schools and churches, libraries, hospitals, those types of things, museums, those kinds of things. There are conditional uses which typically come before a board like ours, so that we can have a little bit of input to make sure we have some control as a community over what may or may not go into a certain zoned area. So there will be, I think in 2 weeks, the developer's going to come back with more detailed plans for the actual project itself. But so this is a use or a hearing really just to determine if the board's comfortable and the community's comfortable with having this on this particular property. Mr. Clark.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is a conditional use hearing. The applicant is McGrath Homes, New Falls Road LLC, for a project known as St. Joseph's Court. The property is located at 9172 New Falls Road in Fallsington, Pennsylvania, 19054. Tax parcel numbers 13-024-001 and 13-020-306, located in the Township of Falls, Bucks County, Pennsylvania. This is an application requesting conditional use to permit the elderly housing use in the institutional district and construct an age-qualified development. The applicant is represented by Thomas Hecker Esquire. And Mr. Hecker, as you are most certainly aware, it is the procedure of the board in conditional use hearings that we would ask that you present the application, present and mark any exhibits that you may have, and then give an overview of the project and any details that you would like the board to consider. We would then ask that you bring your witnesses forward, have them sworn, and ask them if the summary that you have just given is an accurate summary of what they would have testified to if called upon to testify. At that time, your witnesses will be made available for questions from the Board of Supervisors and anyone seeking party status, and of course you will be available to answer questions from the board and from members of the public. Do you understand that procedure, Mr. Hacker? And you may proceed.
Thank you, Mr. Clark. And Mr. Clark, just for clarification, the application and plans submitted in connection with the application, are they already board exhibits, or should I refer to that collectively as applicants?
I think the application is already submitted, is already part of the record of this hearing, so they do not need to be submitted.
Okay, thank you. Then I will not need to mark any additional exhibits. Members of the board, thank you. Good evening. Tom Hecker on behalf of the applicant. This application that's before you tonight deals specifically with the use of this property, as you have noted. It is not the first time the board has seen this plan. You'll recall that we began this process a couple of years ago, looking at rezoning the property at a time when St. Joseph the Workers' School was closed, but the church was still open. We presented an application for rezoning a portion of the property after a lot of discussion, both with Planning Commission as well as this board and your professionals. We tabled that application. We resubmitted the application for rezoning the 1-acre parcel, which is owned by Frank and Maureen Walsh, to institutional, keeping the St. Joseph's property with its institutional zoning. As you are also aware, the church was subsequently closed. It became part of this application. So the plan that was submitted with this application, and which is a colored version that is on the board facing you as well as the audience, represents the entirety of the combined properties as one project, with the church and school properties as well as the Walsh property. There's a total of 18.17 acres gross, which has been proposed for development. The plan's a little bit different than what we originally brought before you the first time. We were proposing at that point in time townhouses with some apartments. This plan has townhouses and apartments, but the number of townhouses had been reduced to 62 units, and that was a result of some information that the township provided with regard to wanting to see further setback off of New Falls Road. And we provided that additional setback before we went to the zoning hearing board, reduced the number of townhouses, but picked up different type of residential development across the back along the stormwater management facility, which we call flats, which are basically one unit on top of the other. So the total number of units remains the same for sale. That would be 76, which is combined 62 townhouse units as well as 14 flats, which are basically one-story units. And I believe we have a total of 3 in one building, 4 in the other. Top bottom makes the 14. Okay, so that's really the primary difference. But I believe we had discussed that with you before we went to the zoning hearing board. The plan also incorporates apartments. There are 2 buildings, 2-story buildings containing 24 units each. All of these units, the townhouses, the flats, and the apartments, are age restricted, and by law that means 55 or older for occupancy. This plan There's two primary entrances to it, as shown on the plan. Next to me is Mark Havers. Occasionally, Mark might point to it if I am, rather than walk up there myself. Mark, if you would just highlight for a moment, if you're going to speak, take the microphone.
Yes, sir. I think it's on the bottom. Yes, there's two primary, I guess, vehicular entrances. A full motion entrance sort of in the center of the property, and on the far left, looking at the plan, there is a out-only entrance. And on the far right, there's also an emergency access entrance, which would just be for emergency vehicles only.
And out of an abundance of caution, we submitted an application to the Zoning Hearing Board, which included a request to provide the third entrance, which is really not an entrance that will be used by the public. It is for emergency vehicle access only. The fire marshal will tell us how he wants that handled, whether by gate, chain, or something along those lines. But that access will look like grass. It'll be a stabilized base so that fire trucks are able to get in there in the event, for whatever reason, the other two entrances are blocked off. So the third point is just strictly for emergency vehicles only. There's 132 additional parking spaces on the site to provide, obviously, parking for the apartments and the flats. In addition, the 62 townhouse units each have a garage for a single vehicle, as well as space in a driveway for two cars being able to be parked side by side. As part of the revisions that we've made to the plan, the driveways have been widened to provide for side-by-side parking. So we believe that there's ample parking throughout the development, including some overflow parking. We provided for sidewalks internally on one side of the street, and we've also provided for sidewalks along New Falls Road. One of the comments we received in connection with our land development submission was to extend the sidewalks. We've done that, stopping just short of the bridge, which is on PennDOT, which is PennDOT owned. So we take the sidewalks to that location. So we have sidewalks along New Falls Road. The plan incorporates some significant stormwater management. That is the issue that we continue to work with the township engineers to make sure everybody is in agreement with the stormwater management facilities. You see the large basin to the rear of the property. You also see the one up front, which Mark is pointing to as we speak. As noted earlier, we have continued to incorporate in this plan a clubhouse facility. These types of communities, the clubhouses are popular gathering places for social events. They provide for exercise facilities, card rooms, whatever gatherings are available to all the members of the association. Every person in this development, whether it be as an owner of a townhouse or flat or a resident of the apartment, will be a member of the association with privileges to use the clubhouse facility. I mentioned a couple of times about an association. The way that a community is age restricted in accordance with the federal and applicable state law is by the filing of a declaration that is recorded against the property. That declaration runs with the land, and it creates the association. The association effectively is the governing body internally for resident affairs. The association will have the ability and will collect an assessment on a monthly basis. That'll be paid towards snow plowing, landscaping, maintenance, those kinds of things, so that repairs can be made on a timely basis. Whenever I form these associations, I provide a copy of the declaration to the township solicitors for the solicitor's input. One of the things that most municipalities like to see is the ability of the municipality to make sure that the association is doing what they're supposed to be doing. And we incorporate that into the documents so that of utmost importance, I think, is the maintenance of the stormwater management facilities. At some point in time, that'll become their responsibility. And in the event that doesn't happen, we always provide for the ability, but not the obligation, of the township to step in and do that, and that gets charged back to the association. So it's something I think that that all municipalities that deal with associations like to have that ability to do. We include it in our documents, and it's something that will be reviewed by Township Solicitor's Office. I know that we have shown you on several occasions the renderings. Mark, would you be so kind as to put up the boards? Just again to remind you, here, give me the mic. The concept that we're showing with the townhouses, rather than a flat design, we're using, as you can see, step backs and some fenestration to augment the fact that we have different architectural features that are incorporated.
Yep. We'll just take the other one out, Mr. Hecker. And while, if you don't mind, just for the people who are in the audience, instead of just covering that one up with that one, can you rotate it to the back so they can see what you're...
Okay.
Okay. And then put the other one in front of us or something? There you go.
Actually, if you want,
Just take that one off and put it back here.
why don't we face that one when as soon as we're
Well, I
done
think
with it, okay?
Pat's got it. Mr. Flanagan's got it. There you go.
Takes a teacher to figure it out.
Yeah.
The next board shows the apartment design. As you can see, a lot of attention has been given to make the two apartment buildings look very similar to the architectural design of the townhouses. And we think that's a good feature to give that community feel and community appearance. In all of John and Pat's developments, they spend a lot of time, attention, and detail to the entrance feature. We've designated this one as St. Joseph's Court. As you can see, it incorporates a couple of things. The pillars, brick pillars with the black wrought iron fence across the front of it to give it that, we think, nice, warm, and upscale feeling. And this view obviously would be from New Falls Road at the main entrance that Mark showed on the plan. The other aspect of this is that the landscaping that is shown on there isn't just shown on this plan. Landscaping will be an important detail that will be incorporated into the development, so everyone can feel good about the way that this is going to look. One thing in looking at the ordinance, there are not any specific standards for this type of development, which is not uncommon. You have specific standards for certain types of conditional uses. There are no specific standards that tell you how big the lots have to be or anything like that. So this plan's been developed in accordance with the standards of the zoning ordinance, but for conditional use, there are just a couple of general requirements which I'd like to take a moment and highlight. And I'm referencing section 20950, capital B1, that states that, and it references conditional uses and special exceptions, but it calls it the proposed change. I'm not quite sure why it says that, because there's really no change. This is permitted as a conditional use. But one of the things the board looks at is whether what we're doing is consistent with the spirit, purpose, and intent of this chapter. And gentlemen, I just simply say to you, the fact that this type of use is permitted in this district answers that question in the affirmative, and we think it's a good fit for the community by its location, and it's a good development, because what we have seen over the years is that people with ties to the community don't necessarily want to move out of the community when their single-family homes get to be a little bit too much for them and they don't want the maintenance. These units are maintenance-free because the association takes care of the outside. You don't have to cut the grass anymore. It also states that, and in this case, It says that it will not substantially injure or detract from the use of the neighboring property or from the character of the neighborhood. One of the reasons that we've shown you the elevation plans of the townhouses, the apartments, and the entrance feature is to show you that we think it'll be a significant enhancement. It is upscale in appearance, and the experience throughout the county when something like this is added is a plus to the people around it. And in that regard, I will point out to you that very early on, we submitted a preliminary traffic analysis that was reviewed by Township's traffic consultant. What it demonstrates, which is consistent with what everybody has found over the years, and that is that an age-restricted community produces a lot less traffic than a single-family home community. You're limited with the number of people who occupy. You don't have 4 or 5 cars, single residence. You don't have everybody leaving at rush hour and coming home at rush hour. While many of the people who live in these communities still work, sometimes they work part-time, sometimes they work different hours. They volunteer a lot, and that is also another benefit to the community. So we think this type of use doesn't detract at all, but it certainly adds to the community. The last item that is referenced as a general requirement is number 3, that really deals with parking, loading, access, or service areas being adequately illuminated at night, and that such lighting, including sign lighting, be arranged so as to protect the highway and neighboring properties from direct glare or hazard interference of any kind. Only lighting here will be typical lighting that you see in a residential community. We're not allowed and will not, by PennDOT regulations or township regulations, have any light glaring onto the adjacent highways or adjacent properties. So we think that this requirement has been met. So that, in a large nutshell, is the overview of what we're proposing. And I'd be happy at this point, if it's appropriate, to have Mr. Havers and my clients sworn to address whether or not I've stated everything correctly.
Okay.
Mark, John, Pat, would you stand up, please?
Do you swear the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Mark Havers, H-A-V-E-R-S, Township, Flying NFL, A-N-A-G-A.
John McGrath, MC.
Mr. Havers is the project engineer. He's a registered engineer in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, employed by Pickering Courts in Somerset out of Newtown. He has been the project engineer since we first started this a couple of years ago, and prepared the plans which have been submitted throughout the process in the township, including the plan which is part of the application tonight. Mark, you've been sworn. You've heard the overview that I provided with your assistance. Is what I said accurate?
Yes, it is.
Is there anything that you would like to change, correct, or modify?
No, no.
So you adopt what I said as your own testimony, as if you had answered questions. Okay, thank you. John and Pat, I'm going to ask you collectively, if you will. Pat Flanagan and John McGrath, who are the developers and the principals of the applicant that submitted this application. Gentlemen, I'll ask you collectively, you heard the statement that I've made as part of the overview. Is everything that I said accurate?
Yes.
Yes.
Is there anything that you want to add, supplement, or modify?
No.
Thank you very much. Gentlemen, that's what we have, and all of us are happy to answer any questions that you may have about this project.
Okay. We'll have the board questions first, and also see if professionals have any issues, and then public as well. Mr. Brasky.
I just have one thing. I guess, like at this point, you know, I'm happy to see the project continue. I don't have the traffic study in front of me, but I was just kind of curious if you do, or you know, when the traffic study was taken. I live there, and the only issue I have is that there's no way that intersection can handle one more car. I live there. I drive it every day. There's no way. So I find it hard to believe that the traffic study finds that there's no issues. One more car, I don't care when the people are going to work, one more car will impact that intersection. But I am glad the property's deteriorating fast. I'm tired of seeing the trash. The back of the property's a mess. But, you know, that's more of a comment than anything. I don't believe the traffic study at all.
Okay, and I'm not going to refute what you're saying, because like you said, you're there every day, but one of the recommendations of the Township's traffic consultant was that they be involved with the process with PennDOT, and we certainly agree to that. So I'm sure that your engineer will relay those comments to PennDOT. We don't know yet what PennDOT is going to require with regard to the intersection, but obviously if there are upgrades required as a result of this, the developer's going to have to do it. And we're happy to continue to work with your traffic engineer.
Thank you.
Mr. Dents?
There's been a concern expressed about the entrances and the lack of more than one entrance into the property. If there was an emergency or an accident, you couldn't get into that one property that's being used, getting into the property.
We have 3 total. Okay, 2 which are,
Trying to say was different road.
If there was an
Other
emergency.
than New Falls, yeah.
yeah.
That's just something that a resident has expressed.
Okay. Yeah, 3 total, 2 of which will be the everyday access for people who live there and visitors, what have you. The third one is really emergency only, just in case something were to happen and those others are not accessible. And that's what I was referencing, the fact that I wasn't sure that we needed the approval, but we asked for that approval from the zoning hearing board to add that third access, even though that will not be open to the general public or to the residents on a daily basis.
That's all I have.
Can I comment just real quick? Sure. Like I read that same email. I think they were just because the 3 entrances were, you know, generally in the same location.
Yeah.
I think that's what it was
Right.
referring to.
Right.
Like right now, at least there was the back entrance to the property, which I know was being closed down, and I think some people in Thornridge were okay with that, you know. But I think that the email was more referencing that.
If there was ever an incident
Yeah.
on New Falls Road, what would they
understand.
do?
Like that bridge, for instance, was closed for a while, you know, and but
Yes.
that's
Understood.
what it was really, you know, referring to, I think.
Understood.
Honestly, most of my questions are about the land development, which I think are more appropriate for the next meeting,
Okay.
which I'm sure I'm going to have a ton, so. But I will ask about the flats, because that was the first time I was aware of that. Can you talk a little bit about that? You said there's 2 flats, so it's a single-story living,
Yeah.
but there's a second story and a first story for the.
There are actually 1-floor units, so it's a top unit and a bottom unit. Okay, so there are 14 of those.
Do you have a rendering of them?
It'll look like the townhouses. Yeah, we don't have one separately of the flats, but the buildings will look very similar to the townhouses.
They have garages?
No garages, but they have parking outside of them.
So where are they at? On the back side there, near the?
Back toward where the gym is.
Oh, there's 2 flats. Yeah. Okay. Got it. Okay. All right. So that's all I have. I'll talk to you in 2 weeks.
It's probably a better question for the land development, but I do know that there have been concerns about the stream that runs behind it, the creek runs behind it, and issues of flooding, and obviously there's, excuse me, there's a lot of impervious surface now between the buildings and the parking areas, the blacktop, everything else, but you also have obviously a huge chunk of field that's still being used. I don't know, you know, if the calculations, if you know them off the top of your head in terms of what the impervious is currently and what it's going to be, if there's any kind of, you know, reduction or increase, or I know I'm catching you off guard. You can't see.
I don't remember. It is a slight increase, but it's, I don't know the numbers off the top of my head, but we are working with the township engineer to try to use the existing conditions as all meadow to even reduce this runoff well beyond what it currently is today.
And is there, I think I know the answer to this, is there any stormwater management system now on that property?
No.
No,
no,
I
there's
didn't think so. Yeah, so, and it's just too old. That's, words didn't exist back when that, when that facility was built. That term didn't even exist, stormwater management.
And in all honesty, that's one of the reasons why it's taken a while to get the land development in front of you, because your engineers are scrutinizing the stormwater management because of the existence of that stream. So we're confident that we're going to resolve that to everybody's satisfaction.
Okay, okay.
Good job, Jim.
Yeah.
Right, Jim?
His daughter got married last year, so he's got a wedding he's still paying off. That's what it's
It was 3 years ago, and I'm still paying.
3 years, that's right.
I have a question. You said there's 12 flats, 6 bottom, 6 top, is that correct?
14.
It's a total of 14.
14,
So you have,
7
you
bottom,
got
7
2
top.
buildings, 3 on the first floor, 4 on the first floor, and then 3 on the second floor, 4 on the second floor.
Oh, yeah.
And the flats will be to own, and the apartments are for rent? Is that basically the
Yes, the
difference?
apartments are rental, but the flats are to be owned.
How are they different in size, I guess, between the apartments and the flats?
They're around 1,200 square feet. They're 2-bedroom.
The flats?
Yeah, and
Okay.
2 full baths.
Okay.
It just gives another product and price range for, some people are single and they don't need the garage, and, it'd be a little cheaper, but
Right.
they're 2 full baths, 2 bedrooms, and they'll get the use of the clubhouse.
And what are the apartments? Single, are they 1 bedroom, or?
They're 1 bedroom and 1 bedroom and a den, and then maybe a couple of 2 bedrooms also, but it seems like, the 1 bedroom and the den will be the most popular. Yeah.
Okay.
Is there elevators on the apartments?
Yes.
And the flats, you'd have to,
Yeah, the apartments are a 2-story building and the design of senior 55 and over apartments is altogether different than regular apartments. A central vestibule, you come in, there's the elevator, your mailboxes, activities, things like that. And then the second floor is kind of mimicked too. There's a vestibule, up in the second floor too. So,
right, and the flat, how do you get up to the second story flat? Through like a side?
Steps. You have your own steps going up.
Okay.
Yeah, apartments, elevators.
Yeah, got it. Thanks.
I'll make sure.
Said that, yeah.
I wasn't paying attention.
All right, okay. All right, comments or questions? Mr. Clark, anything?
Only, Mr. Hecker, again, this might be something more appropriate for land development, but since the manager just asked me, the potential residents of this development will be told that all of the streets and facilities inside will not be dedicated to the township, and that will be clear in the HOA docs and probably even a note on the plan to that effect,
There'll
correct?
definitely be a note on the plan, but since most people don't ever read those notes, we are required not only to provide each purchaser with a copy of the declaration, but something called the public offering statement. Public offering statement sets forth in detail what they're paying for, and it breaks down the anticipated monthly budget, monthly assessment, and that will include an explanation that the streets are private and are going to be maintained privately, the stormwater management facility. So I certainly understand why the manager would ask that question. In some cases, we'll put it in bold print just to make sure.
Thank you. Nothing else, Mr. Hecker.
Just for people in the audience who seems a little confused looks as to why that matters, it's, we've had issues before in the couple of developments we have where there's private roadways, that when there's a heavy snow and the costs of plowing snow get higher and higher and higher, and the residents are the ones paying it, they want to know why the township's not plowing. And we tell them that when this project went in, the understanding was these were private roads, and the residents themselves will be responsible for the plowing and the upkeep. And that's just making sure everybody's got all the information they need to make a good decision. That's where we're at.
And I'm happy to provide the township solicitor with a copy of those documents before they're provided to the prospective purchasers.
Is that
just to
true
make
for
sure.
trash pickup as well?
I think you have to negotiate that privately, right? You're basically like an apartment complex,
Yeah.
basically, same concept, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and just, again, people might ask, well, what's the big deal? Why couldn't the township do it? Well, we require township roads to be built to a certain width, and one of the ways you're able to sort of make configurations like this work is by making the streets narrower than we allow them to be. And so, or we would require them to be. This is pretty good. It's not drastically narrower, but it's usually more narrow than what we asked for. And there are certain things that the developers are kind of given a little bit of leeway on because they're not dedicating the streets to us. And so, if they're not necessarily building quite up to the requirements that we would ask for, although these are obviously going to be, very well built, judging from other projects McGrath has done. You know, they're not up to exactly the normal specifications, and so that's the deal you make. Mr. Sullivan, anything from you?
Mr. Hecker, you're aware that you have 6 months from the date of any conditional use approval to obtain building permits for this project?
I'm aware of it. I'm hoping you were too, so we can get through the rest of this.
I'm aware that you require that. It's going to be up to you whether you get them.
Yes, I'm aware of that requirement, Jim.
Thank you. That's all I have, Mr. Harper.
Is there any public comment or questions? I see no hands. Oh, I see one hand. Okay. Comfort, you're going to have to speak at the mic and identify yourself for the reporter, please. Mrs. Brown, do you need her address too, or just name? Just name?
Just name.
Just name, okay.
Mary Beth Haberstick, Haberstick. And I don't have really anything drastic, and I am very glad to see it going forward. I really do agree that the property is getting bad back there. What I would like to ask, if you know yet, how much of the trees are going to be taken down between Martins Creek and the field? Do you know that yet? Are you going to be able to keep them all with just maybe a little taking care of the dead wood and everything, or are you really going to take most of the trees down?
Just make sure you use the microphone, sir, that's all. Mr. Havers.
I don't know exactly, but the majority of the trees are staying there. There will be some slightly at the edge of the field that will come out. I'm not sure exactly the limits, but on our land development plans, you can clearly see where we're clearing to and where not. But the majority of the trees will stay.
Okay, so there will be a buffer between Thornridge and the property. Okay. And the only other comment I have, I made mention of before privately. Do you guys know that you're spelling Joseph's wrong? Unless you want it to be plural St. Joseph's, it really is. Oh, okay, I was just hoping that somebody would. Okay. That's all I have.
All right, thank you. Any other public comment? Okay. I guess one thing before we take a vote or anything, if recommendation possibly, because we know, because we look at the plans in more detail, the dotted lines and what they mean, and this means that means that. If maybe just some of the people, I know most of the people are here for this because we don't have anything else on the agenda. If they want to just meet after out in the atrium or something, just kind of show them the plans and show them exactly where the woodland margin's going to be and things like that might be helpful, because I know it's on the plan, but people who are looking at it from a distance might not know. Right, and Mr. Clark, so we're okay. We're going to close our conditional use hearing and then vote.
Yes, there's no further comment, and the applicant has completed their presentation. Should close the hearing, and then there should be a motion and a vote.
Okay, is there a motion to close the conditional use hearing?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Okay. All right, so we've had a presentation from the developer, board comment questions, public comment questions, professionals as well. Looking at conditional use for St. Joseph's Court, 9172 New Falls Road. Is there a motion?
I'll make the motion.
Second.
Okay. Motion made and seconded to approve conditional use. All in favor? Aye. Okay. Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you.
And Mr. Hacker, no taking jabs at my engineer when you come back. I got you, Jim.
Oh, man.
Yeah, that's a first.
For now.
For now.
You should see the guy's office. See the guy's office.
That's a priest. No, it's a priest.
You do realize you're going for like 100.
If there were such a thing. But there is. I'm living it each time I have to do a steep climb.
Yeah. I did like your sharp response. Somebody disagrees with me.
All right, we're allowing
Tell me that somebody disagrees with me.
crowds to disperse here.
Over 2 feet.
Thank you. All right, next item on our agenda is consider adopting the 2016 Bucks County Hazard Mitigation Plan. Mr. Gray?
The Disaster Mitigation Act of 2000, Section 322, requires that local governments, as a condition of receiving federal disaster mitigation funds, have a mitigation plan. The Bucks County 2016 Hazard Mitigation Update has been prepared to meet requirements set forth by FEMA and the Pennsylvania Emergency Management Agency, or PEMA, in order for the county to be eligible for funding and technical assistance from state and federal hazard mitigation programs. This is updated approximately every 5 years. Last time the township reviewed this was in 2011. The fire marshal has looked at this and is aware and has no issues. At this time, the board is asked to consider the resolution prepared to adopt the Bucks County Hazard Mitigation Plan.
Okay. Any comments or questions from board members?
No.
No? Mr. Gray, this is Resolution 16-.
35.
Okay, is there a motion to approve Resolution 16-35?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, minutes for September 19th, 2016. Any comments, questions, or corrections?
Excellent minutes as always, Mrs. Pullen.
Okay, is there a motion to accept the minutes as presented for September 19th, 2016?
So moved.
Seconded.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, executive session we had earlier. Mr. Gray?
Yes, just a few items tonight. Township received a letter dated September 29th from Carl Dress from Heritage Design Collaborative, representing the Pennsbury Manor and their waiver of land development application. The project is set to expire on October 24th. They are requesting an extension of waiver of land development application for 90 days. The board is asked to consider this extension.
Okay, imagine there's no comments or questions. Is there a motion to grant the extension?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor? Aye.
Township received a letter from Mr. Sullivan dated September 21st regarding escrow release number 1 for Morrisville Commons. They are recommending a release of $208,498.08. The board is asked to consider escrow release number 1 for Morrisville Commons.
Okay, comments or questions?
None.
Okay, is there a motion then to grant escrow release number 1 to Marsville Commons?
So moved.
Seconded.
Mrs. Pullen?
Mr. Boraski?
Yes.
Mr. Harvey?
Yes.
Mr. Dents?
Yes.
Mr. Rucker?
Yes.
Just one announcement, the police department will be hosting the Falls Township Shredder event. This will be held on Saturday, October 29th from 8 a.m. to 1 p.m. in the front parking lot by the police department. This is free to all township residents, no businesses. Residents are limited to 6 bags or 6 boxes. And that is all I have. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, thank you. Okay, board comment? Mr. Rocco?
I have none. Thank you.
Mr. Dents?
No comment.
Mr. Boraski?
Sure. I just want to mention that Fallsington Day is this Saturday, October 8th, in historic Fallsington. The hours for the whole event will be 10 to 4:30. It's a great event, multi-block long, through the whole neighborhood. There's demonstrations and crafts and food and vendors. I also like to plug for the Fallsington Elementary School. The hours that the school has their event is 10 to 3:30. They also have food and crafts and games. They also have the gaming truck that has been there in the past. Kids can play video games in the trailer. It's a great day, especially when the weather's nice. This week, past week, I had a conversation with the chairman of the Planning Commission, and I'm sure you guys are aware they're down multiple members at this point. They're kind of on the verge of not having a quorum for their meetings. So if anyone's interested in joining the Planning Commission, please get a letter in, I guess, to Mr. Gray. Comes to you. The only other thing I have is just like to congratulate my brother. I was in Boston this weekend for a ceremony. He was promoted to Chief Petty Officer. So just like to thank him for his service. It was a good time.
Yeah, absolutely. I saw the pictures on Facebook, and congratulations, definitely. So, just a couple things for me. We had a couple of vacancies on different boards. I know one member, a person I've talked to, one volunteer or potential volunteer, Ms. Patricia Gunn was interested in being on the Environmental Advisory Council. I had a conversation with her. She has a pretty good amount of support. She works in experience rather, looking at this. She works in lab support for a pharmaceutical company in New Jersey and does a lot of things regarding hazardous materials and green labs, making things environmentally sensitive, environmentally friendly. And she just wants to get involved. She wants to help out. So if it's okay with board members, I'd like to nominate Mrs. Gunn to, I think there's 2 vacancies, and one of them is up this year. One's a 3-year term, so I'd like to nominate her for the 3-year term.
She sounds like a good fit. I will second it.
Motion made and seconded. All in favor? Aye. Okay. And just one other thing, the board members did get a memo from Tom Bennett regarding the community rating system. The township has fought pretty hard over the past several years to deal with the flood maps that are produced periodically by FEMA. Many of those flood maps hadn't been updated in a long time, and we had a lot of people in places like Elderberry and North Park who were paying flood insurance in areas that never flood. And we really fought very, very hard to get those maps changed. And I know the staff here really worked very diligently on that. The engineer's office as well was doing a lot of work helping us. And so a lot of those homes have been taken out, not all. And there certainly are some areas of falls that are in the floodplain and aren't going to come out. However, there were a lot of homes that were in the floodplain that really shouldn't have been, and thereby, people are paying thousands of dollars in flood insurance, and it really didn't make any sense. The memo we have from Mr. Bennett references the community rating system, which is through FEMA, and based on actions that we can take as a township, we can earn credits basically for residents in falls so that they can apply those credits to if they still have to pay flood insurance, it'll lower the amount of flood insurance they have to pay. And the more we do as a community and professionally, and some of these things we already do in our land development process, but there are a few more things that I know that Mr. Bennett is asking for some guidance from us in terms of seeing if we can have our engineer do a little bit more, do some specific things that would even lower it even more. So we could be looking at somewhere 15 to 20% a discount on flood insurance for people, which ends up being hundreds of dollars. We're dealing with, with as much money as some of these are. So the maximum you can get is a 45% discount. It's not real clear if we'd ever be able to achieve that, but we can certainly try to come close to help residents who are paying flood insurance. If we can do more, then why not? So I wanted to bring that up, and hopefully we can have some discussion on that and talk a little bit more with our engineer. And now at some point, and I guess we have one more meeting before the clocks go back, right? Yeah, it's in November now. Okay. We do have, and I guess we should issue an apology that tonight is sort of Rosh Hashanah. The Jewish New Year technically began yesterday. So we did have a resident who did voice some, a little bit of concern about the fact that we were having a meeting on the holiday. He wasn't able to attend. So that was obviously no intended disrespect. Yom Kippur, which is another one of the holiest days of the Jewish year, is next week. And so for those residents of Falls Township who are Jewish, we do apologize for any, certainly unintended consequence of us having a meeting on tonight, and wish everyone a Happy New Year, Jewish New Year, and Happy Yom Kippur, or Blessed Yom Kippur, actually, I should say. So with that, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.